I mean, I totally agree. The AI part with the video, I think
Mm-hmm.
in text we've talked about that, about how that is a worry of mine because
Mm.
someone is going to take a video of, we'll just say, Joe Rogan interviewing Donald Trump and them talking about something highly, highly controversial, but it was AI generated and people are going to take it as genuine.
For sure. Yes. That's just starting. We're at the very
Yeah.
beginning of history of that. And it's only become more sophisticated over time. And I think in the future, it's going to be really weird how media even operates because people in the future will not be able to believe like most of what they see all the time. And I don't even know how that's going to work. We haven't even really thought that out very well, it seems like at this point. But,
Well,
I can, yeah.
on I guess the worst case is people right now in both political parties genuinely don't trust the media. It's
Right.
higher in one party than the other. But now, I mean, when it comes with the Twitter files that were released by Elon, it's you have a government entity trying to dictate what information can be shared, what information cannot be shared for
Right.
the government's benefit. So now when you have AI generated videos, and how are we going to determine what videos are truth, are accurate, were made by this XYZ person, and which ones are not?
Exactly. I mean, there's a couple basic, obvious, things would be one is like a truth and reconciliation committee that the government controls. And that sounds very 1984, who decides what the truth is. And, that would be one way to regulate it. But otherwise, it's going to be a wild west of, one thing that came to mind was a couple years ago that was related to Facebook getting in trouble in India was that they made up a fake incident of a Muslim shopkeeper attacking a Hindu person, and just from the social media spread of it, it went wild, and the Hindu mobs went wild in a Western Indian state, and so that was just a rumor, essentially spread on social media. So it would be like in the medieval ages, a rumor about Jews or something would spread, and then pretty soon they'd burn down their region. That would be a similar scenario like that happened. But now social media can spread that very rapidly, with technology. But now, what if you could fake a video of the Muslim person attacking the Hindu shopkeeper? How do you sort what's real and what isn't? And people's emotions will be so inflamed that the damage will already be done by the time the truth is even clarified. And the same thing will apply to our left and right politics as well.
Oh yeah.
People's emotions will be so inflamed that by the time they actually did sort it out that it was fake, it would be too late. The damage would already be done. So that's one of these things. Like either in the future with media, we're gonna have to like never believe anything we ever see, and be like never get emotionally attached to anything we see, which is highly unlikely, or something. But the same problem still exists. Like to have a central government committee decide what's truth then and regulate that. That's just as problematic as having it freewheeling. There's no clear, direct answer that AI has answered or asked a new question about reality. And if you can't trust what you're seeing in reality, how do you determine what to do about it? And so and that always came to mind. I remember reading about that years ago. And the Hindu mob just went wild, and it turned out it wasn't even true. But social media had already done the damage. Facebook had already done the damage, and the Indian government then started to take steps against forcing Facebook to regulate it there because of how emotionally charged that stuff is out there. They When it first came out, they would just not regulate it very heavily, and they forced Facebook to moderate a lot of the posts that came on there. But essentially, whether it's the government or it's Facebook, the corporation, somebody's moderating and filtering what truth is. So that's also another issue. Just because the government doesn't do it doesn't mean another entity can't or won't do it. And they are essentially right now. Social media is being moderated by their corporations instead of a government. But uh, either way, they're deciding the truth, and that's highly problematic going forward. And we're just at the beginning where a rumor can do this. Imagine if you could replicate a video of that incident. If I could totally fake a video of that incident of a shopkeeper attacking somebody, then you know the people would be absolutely rampaging. It'd be just totally, total insanity. So I mean, obviously, I don't have an answer, and I don't think anybody does actually at this point. I haven't seen any good answers because either way, the government builds a truth committee, or corporations build a truth committee, or it's totally wild west, and everything that you see could be fake. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's only three. That's only three basic answers. There's probably more complicated inside those three.
Yeah. So I remember during during COVID, the Rolling Stones magazine,
Mm-hmm.
they put out an article saying that so many people were taking worm dewormer, the ivermectin,
Mm-hmm.
that hospitals were flooded with people and they couldn't get in. And they had a photo of a bunch of people in a line just standing outside, and all you could see is just a line of people. It turned out the photo was from Oklahoma City, that was from like 2 years prior to COVID, before
Mm.
it ever started. And it was just a good photo for what their article they were talking about. And like even the New York
Right.
Times called them out. A bunch of people called them out, like, you used this photo. When it turned out that
Right.
everyone realized that that photo was like 2 years old, had nothing to do with COVID. It was just a bunch of people standing out in the winter.
Right.
So it's like, imagine what could happen with video. One,
Right.
two. So on one hand, I think we're going to we could create partially a society where nobody knows what to believe. But on the
Right.
positive side, I think it could cause people to truly have break bread with one another and engage in discourse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's have conversations. So therefore, the people amongst themselves are forced to, exchange dialogue, find
Mm-hmm.
what the truth really is, and share
Right.
information. Versus right now, I feel like people don't want to talk about hard topics or politics because of how divisive. It could
Mm-hmm.
force us to more come together to collectively figure out, like, what do we got to do to move forward? Because we're not trusting media, we're not trusting big tech or the government oversight committee. And who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
politics will
very
swing into the more trustful times, but I mean, I don't. I'm not putting my money on that.
for sure. Yeah, no, I think that brings up two really good points. You're right. Is one that the AI adds a new spin to it, but you can take a good picture that's not accurate and spin it just as well, and they've been doing that for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
that's certainly not anything new. It's a picture that wasn't accurate to the incident. It was taken 2 years prior, but you could spin it as the thing of the current incident. So
Yeah.
AI doesn't suddenly create a new thing that's already existed. It's already been there and already been
Yeah.
in play. And I think you're right. I think we often forget that everything was always golden age in the past, but actually people depended on a lot less media sources and looked to a lot less. For example, like the Soviet news, you only got it from a certain couple sources. I think you're right that we actually depended on less media sources in the past, and in the future we could work together. Since you can't trust the media, whether AI generated or not, you have to work with your local communities and pass information between them more because you're gonna be forced to, because you can't depend on an authority on high. Not that you ever really could, but you far less so now that the AI generated information can make everything so blurry that you have to work with your local communities to try to get to the bottom of what happened. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
could actually be very helpful, up to a point. Obviously, you can't spin it that web too wide, but local communities could really benefit from it by helping each other and passing information between each other and stuff like that. So that could be that's true. I didn't even think about that. That's very helpful. Uh, but often we think that only now that Fox News and CNN was the only sources of information. In the 70s, Walter Cronkite, there was only even less sources than there is now of mainstream media, and everyone depended on that for the information. So it's actually less bad now than it was in the past. But we should continue that process of reducing single sources of information and authoritarian sources of information to try to spread it out as much as possible, as much as you can. And of course, like you said, you're going to have to go like talk to the local person who saw the fire in Louisiana, because the AI generated version of it, you can't tell on national level. Like, you'd have to literally travel to that town in Louisiana and talk to the person who owns the building to figure out the final truth of the matter. Otherwise, some community of the other attacked a building and burned it down, and that's what the AI generated image said. And so stuff like that, it's gonna be just extremely more costly and resource intensive to get to the truth. I think ultimately we'll still use similar mechanisms what we use today, but it's just gonna be a lot harder to get to the very absolute what happened than it already is right now. And it already isn't easy right now. It is not easy. It's very expensive and difficult right now. The China, COVID situation is a perfect example, especially if the governments don't want to cooperate, or the authorities that have control over the situation don't want to cooperate and pass information. It's already super difficult. So it can be even worse when the AI can generate voices, and you could be talking to a celebrity on a phone conversation, and it won't be pre-recorded. They'll literally be talking back to you, like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm Taylor Swift. Vote for whoever." So
Yes. Oh my.
that'd be crazy. That'd be totally crazy, because most people don't have the really comprehensive thinking to think about that and consider that none of these celebrities could really have the time to talk to you individually.
Dude, there was a scam going on. It was an ad on YouTube. I don't know how this was allowed on YouTube, but it was for cryptocurrency. It was XRP, and there would be an ad on YouTube that was from the CEO of Ripple, which is the parent company of XRP, and it was saying, because it's him talking, and he is saying, because our lawsuit with the SEC has now come to a conclusion, all of those XRP owners, we want to thank you for sticking with us during this lawsuit, because it was a long lawsuit, The price went down, they got taken off Coinbase, etc., etc. You couldn't even buy them in the United States for a long time because the SEC was going after them for being a security. So, and this is just a couple months ago, the court case ended. YouTube ad that said, if you send us your XRP, we're going to double it and send you back, but it's a one-time only from your wallet.
Right.
Dude.
Which
and
never do that, ever. I don't care if they promise you 5 million. You're given the keys to the kingdom. It's that simple.
So how I saw it is, my dad took a video of the YouTube ad. They would just be in the normal YouTube, and then it goes to an ad, and it was of the CEO. And I watched it, and I was like, dude, that is... So I went to his X account, his Twitter, and he had nothing on it. The official Ripple site had nothing on it. The official XRP site on X, none of them had anything about this. And I was like, dude, that is a AI generated scam.
Just begun. Consider that this is just the very beginning of it. It's 1980s with a computer. It's going to get so much more sophisticated as time goes on. it's very basic. It's a basic bitch right now. So it's going to get way better over time. So it's something we need to consider. And similar to our chat last week, we talked about the benefits. And there's no tech that ever isn't a double-edged sword. And it's not even just tech; it's nearly everything in reality. But it's the double-edged sword is that information is going to be much more difficult to work with in the future with AI.
Hmm.
It's just how it goes. I use Stable Diffusion, which is a local GPU image generator. Bard just sent me an email about how now they do image generation. So you can do it within Bard or GPT now. You can have image generation. But I use a local version that uses a GPU. And I think I've sent you some of those before where I'm generating celebrities and stuff like that. And I'm just doing cartoon versions of it, but you could definitely spend a lot of time working on getting photorealistic ones easily, no problem. And you can totally fabricate incidents. You can also use basically an add-on to the core program that will allow you to take an image of yourself doing stuff. So you can then change, so you could have an image of yourself. The AI will learn the image of you, and then it'll recreate scenarios that you want with your body and face. So, yeah, that should be
Wow. No,
really
you've sent me some that weren't very cartoony, that were pretty realistic looking,
they're getting
of
there,
just
yeah.
not famous people, just like a human that you created. And some of them, dude, are so good.
And I'm
So
not
good.
even doing any. I'm not even doing any prompt engineering. I'm doing like really basic prompts, and I'm sure if you really
Uh-huh.
wanted to spend time on it, you could get it down. You could dial it into a much more photorealistic and believable scenario. And so celebrities are gonna have hella crazy shit in the future as well to deal with.
Dude, I almost want to start an OnlyFans with just purely AI generated, just AI generated person. So then it doesn't have to be a real person,
For sure.
but you
There
could
already,
literally make, because it's AI generated, and then, you know, because it's a AI generated person, that person doesn't need to have morals because they're just doing whatever the people request them to do, and therefore
exactly.
you just have an OnlyFans that's AI generated, and you're gonna have people out there who aren't gonna know the difference. They're just gonna be like, dude, this chick does
And
everything I want her to do.
don't
I'm
particularly
addicted.
care either. You know, they don't
No.
particularly care if it is real or not. There's already VTubers, I think that's what they're called, and basically they use a motion capture suit, and then they can create generated characters. And so, like, I would put on a motion capture suit, and now you'd see me as like a duck, an animated duck or something. But in this case,
Okay.
they're like, of course, they're always hot anime chicks and stuff like that.
Mm.
That gets views. But you could totally take that to the next level and have that generated person do OnlyFans porn and stuff like that if you wanted to, for sure. But that's the direction it's going. Uh, and yeah, that's something to definitely consider given how much money that brings in, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Why would anyone eventually do porn themselves? I mean, I think there's a definitely a toxicity level to porn in our
for
society,
sure,
but why would anyone just do that themselves? Why would any woman subject themselves to it when you could just have an AI? You just tell it what to do. You know what? This guy wants me to do this and this and this, and hit enter, and then it's an
exactly.
AI generated video that you just send out to that guy, and you're 250-pound chick just sitting at home collecting in cash.
And that is definitely
Oh
the
my
direction of
gosh.
the future. You'll have to be tech savvy enough at first, but eventually 10, 20 years down the road, it'll be easy as downloading an app and to do that. So right now it's pretty tech savvy. Only the VTubers that are actually pretty good graphics artists, they have to, and you have to buy a pretty expensive motion capture suit because what it's doing is capturing like every motion that you're making. And so to replicate that accurately, it's pretty expensive at this point still, but it's the price comes down. It's already come down a lot in just a few years from when I started watching the motion capture suits. And because basically you can create a 3D generated character and then animate it by just having a motion capture suit. Uh, to animate stuff traditionally was quite difficult. So now you can basically just use your own body movements as animation, and then you can make a character animated, and it even looks much more realistic and everything. So, but those back in Hollywood, like even years ago, those were like super expensive, and then they went from 10,000, now they're like 1,000, and now I've heard there's new ones that are just a couple $100. So it's going that direction for sure. But these are
So
the kind of
then,
issues that are going to come up. The other one is the legality, though. Like like the AI images, the AI everything, AI generated everything. Like, what happens if the Supreme Court rules on the changes of the copyright law? That's really why
yeah,
everything is hinging right now on that. But right now, they've said that AI can't be copyrighted. So what that ultimately means is I can make a really cool design, put it on a T-shirt, and sell it, right? Because it can't be copyrighted. However, someone
Mhm.
else can take that same image and put it on a T-shirt and sell it because I can't copyright it.
yeah,
And that applies to both AI generated video, generated everything at this point. What if they change that though? That's the real question that it looms over the 3D design and gaming and movie industry. Is they want to use AI tools right now in 3D art, but there's looming questions about its legality. They'd like to expand it even faster. They're already expanding it pretty fast. They're already adding a lot of tools right now, but they want to even expand it faster. However, there's the looming legal question about whether they do. With that said, I really don't know enough about the legal stuff, but it would be surprising because they've had this challenge come up many times, and they've always said it has to be AI created or human created to patent to copyright it, and anything computer generated can be copyrighted like that. So unless they really change the fundamentals of copyright law, it'll probably be the same. But that is also unfortunate because what if you make a
yeah.
really sick AI? What if you make like a really cool AI logo? You can't copyright that logo. That's stuff
See,
like that.
here's the thing, I guess that it's if I'm putting in the prompts, I'm taking the time and effort to create this thing, and I'm just using a tool. It's no different than someone using a Photoshop tool
Right.
15 years ago to create a logo. I'm just using the
Exactly.
most available tools, but I had to prompt it. I made multiple changes with these prompts. Um, I don't know how I feel. I think you should be able to, if you create something using AI. I mean, that's your intellectual property.
Absolutely. You can see how it's a feisty, fiery debate in art
Yeah.
circles and stuff. There's basically art. There's Reddit, the AI art Reddits and stuff, and man, it is fierce. Like there's traditional artists who absolutely hate AI art. I mean, they're vicious. They're like setting out swats. They'll swat people's homes and shit. They are. It is like serious. And then of
See,
course there's pro AI people are saying it's nothing more than a tool, like you were saying. It's literally nothing more than a tool that you use for Photoshop to finish your work. So what is the difference? And so there's a fierce debate about it going on in the art circle. And it's in that same question you're posing, the copyright people are really going to have to take that into consideration because it's little more than a tool, as far as I can tell at this point. It's just a very sophisticated tool, and but ultimately it still requires human creativity to drive the process. And so, I mean,
I mean,
it's AI driven, it's human driven, it's human created.
if you think
So
about it, every logo from 2000 to 2022 was used making make was used
Photoshop.
with some sort of software.
Yeah, exactly.
Every logo that was trademarked, copyright, all of that was made with some sort of software for 22 years, maybe even more. And
Across
the
the board.
fact that, and here's the thing about the people in art, you don't need to get your panties all up in a wad because there are going to be people. Art is so subjective that people are still going to like your type of art and want to buy your type of art versus digital
My,
art. You're going to have those people who are going to want something more authentic or eclectic or whatever terms that they want to use that doesn't have to do with the digital world. So
Right.
it's just we shouldn't promote a scarcity mindset of like I'm an artist and now my skills are going to be deemed useless if because of AI. It's like, well, no, your skills will actually be more niche. Will be
Right.
considered more niche now if you continue those skills and continue to master the skills you already have. But don't hate on someone else who all the time that they're putting in is to prompt something to its the most utmost potential that a client is asking them for. It's just the
The
tools that you're using for your canvas.
It's the tools that you're using for your canvas. And no artist that does regular work in the modern age uses a pen and a pencil and a piece of paper. That simply is just not how it's done. It's you can sell that individually, but if a company hires you for work, or if you're going to be working on a movie and doing artwork for them, you use Photoshop, you use computer aided tools already. So this is simply another level of those computer aided tools. There's also a couple other aspects that I think are important to address. And if somebody, the anti-AI people come across this pod, expect some fiery stuff because they're going at it all the time on Reddit and stuff. And you check them out if you want. You can go to the AI art Reddit stuff, and wow, it's like it's they're fired up. But the other issue is like when a lot of these artists from the Renaissance era first made their paintings, many of them, not all of them, but a lot of them that have survived to the modern age were considered worth the equivalent of $10. They were oh, so he did a little doodle in his art studio. Oh, what did he do? I don't even care. I'm not even going to pay $5 for that. Now
Yeah,
they go for 16 million.
yeah,
So scarcity in art works in different ways as well. It often, if everything is AI generated, then the few amount that is human hand created is going to be that much more precious and therefore valuable. And they often forget that dynamic. Are you going to get regular work from a corporation because they can AI generate it? Probably not, because why would they do that? To me, there's lots of projects like that project I was talking about with Venus that I'm working on, the book. I've always wanted to create cover art for it, but to hire an artist is a significant amount of outlay. Now I can use Stable to do that. So that's
yeah.
another aspect of that. But I always had those creative ideas, but I didn't have 10 years of drawing experience to put it to paper. And now
Yeah.
AI allows me, the really cool thing about it is AI allows me to actually use my creativity and allows everybody. It much more democratizes creativity because before there's gateways, and those gateways were those artists that were good enough to actually, but you had to pay them. You had to pay them proper, and that's why they're so fired up. Is those people are under threat of their traditional lifestyle, but everything always changes and always has changed, man. We used to hand weave our own clothes. Did the
Yeah.
world end? Did textiles collapse and the whole thing end after we stopped weaving? No, it didn't. And it
No.
changed, and it dynamically changed. There was winners and losers, and there's going to be in this one too. But it's art will not die. Art will not completely disappear. It will change forms, and I often believe that it'll make hand drawn art even more valuable than it is right now.
I agree.
And it's because there'll be such a huge mass of AI generated that the few that are, it's like the Renaissance paintings now. It was just a doodle at the time, but now it's like people can't even. It's nearly priceless, and there's going to be a similar dynamic, I think, with that going on. But in the meantime, yes, a lot of artists' traditional livelihoods of getting hired by a corporation or an individual like me who wants to do a book or do a, I don't know, whatever they're working on. And there would be the gatekeeper for you to get that creativity done would be them. Now you don't need that. You can go to Bard, you can go to GPT, or you can get your own local system with Stable, and you can start making your own whatever your mind can dream up. It'll generate it. The issue with a lot of artists too is that it used their art to learn how to do it. Is it actually using theirs in the final product? Not necessarily, but I have a book and it's literally titled How to Steal Like an Artist. And the whole thing is, and this is years before AI even was a question in art circles, was literally you look at Renaissance pieces and you find their style and you replicate that style and make it your own. So you add a little something to that style. But ultimately, you're deriving your inspiration from other people's art. And
Yep.
basically, the beginning of that book is that all the art essentially has already been created in different ways. So you can take your own spiel on stuff that's already been created, and so you steal like an artist. You know, that's the whole premise, is that if we have thousands of years of art at this point and every style you can imagine, there's only so many ways to draw a circle, you know, and a globe and a planet and a flower pot. There's only so many millions of ways to do it. And so every way has been done over thousands of years. So now you take your own, you study others people's works and you make it your own, you know? And that's essentially more accurately what AI is doing. It is using theirs to learn from and then recreating it. That's it's recreating it. I know it's a hotly contested issue exactly how the AI does it and how close it approximates to other people's work, but that's a highly technical thing that I don't fully understand. That has to do with like the coding of the AI neural networks itself. So I don't presume to know too much about that. But that's what the copyright people are going to have to determine. Like they're going to have be people smart enough to understand the neural networks and figure out, is it actually taking other human artwork and copyright violating it, or is it doing exactly what that book I bought years ago saying? Is it stealing like an artist? That's the
Yeah.
real question. So
There hasn't
it's a
been
tough
a single thing I've ever created on Photoshop where I didn't initially get an idea from somebody else.
thing. I mean, literally, and every artist, even
Yeah.
the best in the world, do that. Even the very best. There is no the thing of inspiration like straight to the brain like a lightning bolt, and you created something totally new that's never been created ever in the history of mankind. It's simply maybe like in 5,000 years ago, maybe, but
Yeah.
definitely not in 2024. Um, in 2024, they're all derivatives of other derivatives over time. So
And I think that same, for anyone watching, that same philosophy applies to everything. All the information for everything we'll ever need is already out there. It's just what we do with that information, how we combine information A with information B to create something that's
right,
C, but it's still from something else.
absolutely. Besides a few things of like high-end physics, quantum physics that we just don't know yet, but almost everything else, anything to run your business and your life well, it's already out there. You just need to get it. You just need access to it. It's just you just need
Yeah,
to take your own spin on it.
and correct me if I'm a little off, because it's been a while since I've looked into the quantum physics, but even with the quantum physics, it's like we have an idea of what it is, but we just don't understand how it goes about, or how we solve, I guess, solve the riddle, but we have a basis of understanding. Is that kind of an accurate thing?
For sure, yeah. I think
It's like
one,
it's like
yeah,
gravity. We know what gravity does. We just don't know how it's applied, but we know what it does.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where like physics is so complex that we are still learning. So it's one. I
Yeah.
guess my point was it's one of the few fields left that we're still learning. But when it comes
Hmm.
to things like art and writing, it's been done so many times, so many thousands of times, over and over again, over thousands of years. That in general, for the most part, you're taking inspiration from others who have come before. And there's those famous sayings: "You're standing on the shoulders of giants." That's those kind of concepts. We're creating great works from others' help in the past. So, and physics is just one of those where it's just at the very edge. We just don't fully grasp even what's going on, you know. But we'll get the
Yeah.
information. That's what we're working towards gathering, is gathering new information. Uh, I think one physicist said about quantum is, if you think you know quantum physics, you don't know quantum physics, because it's literally absolutely mind-bendingly bizarre. So yeah, the slit experiment is basically where like a particle is in two places at once. So that just we can just leave that conversation there. Just think about that. This is our
Yeah.
daily reality. If I drop something If I drop something and it falls to the ground, the ball has dropped to the ground. Our normal lives, it makes sense. But imagine if you dropped a ball and it landed in two different places exactly the same time and it's the same ball. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Quantum breaks our whole understanding of reality. So that's the only little tiny bit I know about it, and it'll probably just show how much we don't know if we talk any
Yeah.
more about it for sure. So
Yeah. We can just nip that one. I
that's
had a
that's
college
that's beyond
professor.
our level.
Yeah, I had a college professor once say that every movie was based off a story either in the Bible or written by Socrates.
Hmm.
Or is it Socrates? It wasn't Socrates. Who was the
Socrates, a
dude
philosopher.
who was the guy who was always writing like poetic shit? I thought it started with an S.
Well, I don't know. There's so many of them, but
Who's
I
who's
get
the
what you're
like
saying. Yeah, like it's
who's the guy who
basically
wrote Romeo and Juliet?
Shakespeare. Yeah,
Shakespeare.
yes, Shakespeare.
He
Yeah.
was saying every movie is based off something that Shakespeare wrote or from the Bible, and people are raising their hand. What about this movie? And then
Right,
he just like links it to Shakespeare or links it to a story out of the Bible, and he's just
for
like,
sure.
nothing is new. It's just all coming from, you could almost correlate them all to things that were written, a couple thousands of years ago by these two sources, or just another source wrote some, and then everyone is writing their version or making a
That's
movie
exactly
or
it.
a book
That's just like you're
off
saying. It's
that.
like steal like an artist. So it's the
Feel like an artist.
same exact premise. They're great stories have been around for a long time, and we act like that stuff's new, but we're often just retelling very old stories that have already been told.
Yes.
So in different ways, we add new tech to it. We add futuristic skylines, but it's still a very Shakespearean story. So that's at the core of, and that's what AI faces. That's its fundamental issue. Is it actually stealing the artist's directly work, or is it actually just taking inspiration from their designs? Because many artists have a very similar style in today's art world, and they are the ones so pressing lawsuits against the AI art companies is because they feel that their individual style has been copied by the AI art. Because
Yeah.
the original prompts on Stable, I could literally put in the artist's name as part of the prompt, and it would use that information to create an image like their art style. But again, is that not any different from stealing like an artist where I look at the artist, the anime art of such and such, and then I make a similar design to his?
Yeah.
That's in effect what we're doing. And the real question is about the neural network and is it actually copying it directly. And that part I don't understand enough. That's some coding and high level stuff I don't get. But I can say that it seems to me from my perspective, and I think you agree with me, is it looks like it's just stealing like an artist, which we've done for
Yeah.
generations. So
I totally agree. I mean, what was that movie that was absolutely massive with the blue people, and there was the unobtainium or something that they were trying to go
like
after?
the avatars one? Is that the avatars where the
Dude,
blue people are 6 feet
Avatar,
taller? Yeah.
Avatar movie is literally the Pocahontas movie remade.
Right, exactly. See what I'm saying? You could do this.
It's
You could do this
it's
all
fucking
day. You could
Avatar, Pocahontas, Avatar, Christopher
it's
Columbus, whatever you want to
exactly
link it to. That's what that is.
every time. It's the great stories have been told, and we tell them and retell them, generation
Uh
after
huh.
generation in different ways. And we need to accept that. That's part of what AI is going to do as well. Is now a machine is going to retell our stories, which is awkward and uncomfortable, but it is what it is. I'm sure Shakespeare would be disturbed by how we're retelling some of his stories even
Yeah.
before AI art. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things.
So, and here's the thing of inspiration for everybody is that Quentin Tarantino refuses to use CGI.
Mm,
Okay. He doesn't believe that that is art, you
right.
know, and that's his opinion. Good. That's not the part that matters. The part that matters is people will still always show up to his movies, even though you're going to
There's
have
no CGI.
zero CGI.
Right.
Guess what? So if you feel threatened as an artist because you don't use AI or you're not the CGI guy, guess what? There's still going to be people who are going to want your work. It doesn't just
Absolutely.
mean everyone's just throwing their hands up and we're addicted to this AI. You're going to have
Absolutely.
artists who aren't going to have their panties in a wad and who are going to be highly successful. Just keep doing what you're doing and master your craft, and you will be fine.
Exactly. There's artists that will use AI tools and make even better and more creative designs. And then there'll
Yep.
be ones who will say, you know what, I'm done with all of it. And they're going to go back to paper movement. And there'll be still people who
Uh-huh.
will line up to get their only hand drawn art. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, and there
Just,
always has been and there always will be. So it is what
just
it is.
yeah. I mean, just like Quentin Tarantino's movie. I mean, The Hateful Eight. He made that in one location.
Right. No CGI,
That
no
movie.
imported backgrounds or any kind of
Nothing.
crazy stuff. Like he refused to do it, and those all of his movies are considered many times classics and always
Yeah.
usually sell really well. And that's a good example of it'll be just fine. But what will happen and always does happen is there'll be great changes within the art community, and
Ugh.
it's already happening right as we speak and will continue to happen for decades to come. And that's the hard part is what you've been used to, what you've been comfortable, what you might have even built your career on is now going to be shifting like sand underneath you. And that's always scary. Doesn't matter if it was when they started going from machine making textiles to where you were considered one of the best hand makers of clothes in the region.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that process never changes, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not gonna be fun always. It's not gonna be great. It's gonna probably suck often, but it's simply the price of how things work. You know, I didn't make it. I'm just learning from it and trying to do my best within it,
Yep.
as
And
we
you
all are.
can make a decision of going with the change
Right.
and adapting to the change, or staying in your lane and perfecting
Th-
that.
That's
But
right.
then don't look back and say, "Oh, I wish I would have chose this other lane." Be perfectly content with the decision you make, and just
Right.
go that way.
I couldn't agree more. The part of the Reddit arguments is like there's artists that are starting and they're like, oh, with AI, I feel like I just need to give up. I feel so depressed. I can't even practice my art because I feel like it's all over with. And like you're saying, no, stick with what you're doing. If you believe in what you're doing, do it. There'll always be a market for your talents, guaranteed. Especially in something like art, where like how big of an industry is things like movies and games and basically entertainment media. They are massive. So there's going to be a demand for your work, even if you are telling AI, to do stuff. Your creative talents will still be highly in demand. And
Yeah,
if
and those.
you're, you know, there hasn't been demand for your hand drawings in any industry that's entertainment media for a long time. And I hope those people are aware of that it's not like they've been even using concept art by hand for a long time. They've been using Photoshop for a very long time. So there's really nothing new in that case. You're still going to be using your computer tools, and this is simply but another computer tool. But you're still going to need to be good at your hand drawn art, no matter what, for sure. One thing I often use when I'm doing AI art is I actually use a tablet and I actually go and refinish parts that are incorrect and wrong. And that's where I wish if I had formal art school, I would know how to shade that correctly. That's a perfect example of where artists will always be in demand because it'll be highly unlikely that the AI will get to 100% like anything. And it'll probably always need some touch up work like anything. Even 3D modeling needs touch up work and has many artists down the line that do touch up work for them. So that will always be a factor. But I honestly don't know enough about the industry to know exactly. But I'm just saying, real general, there'll always be a demand. But there won't
Yeah.
always be a demand just for your hand drawings. And if you're worried about AI replacing your hand drawings, then yes, that's no one makes their clothes by hand very much anymore, and there's not much of demand for it. I have to. That's the truth. So
Yeah.
got it.
I
Like
mean,
you said, either roll with it or you stick to it and look back to the golden days. So. Uh, It's not
Yeah, and
all the
I
options you have.
guess anyone who says that they have to change what they were going to do because of AI, you are probably going to quit anyways. The mere fact that that's your out. You were
Right. It
probably
shouldn't.
going to quit
Yeah.
at some point. You were just looking for an out. You're not committed to whatever it is that your craft was. And in this day and age, you can literally, what any kind of art, even if you are a pencil artist, you can build a profile on Instagram or TikTok so big that people are going to pay you $2,000 for a drawing like this that was done by pencil. Someone is going to, if you build a big enough audience that people know about you. If people don't know about you, then no one's buying this from you for $2,000 because ain't no one know.
And I think at the core of it is ultimately the creativeness is what it's at the core anyways. And that's the one thing that AI can't do is be
Yeah,
creative. So it will create what you want. Like say I can try to recreate that scene with AI, but to think of it is not what AI does. AI can mechanically regenerate those lines, but it can't actually come up with the idea of it. So that's where the artist will always be the, maybe not always, but for right now, to think of that scene right there, and you think of like Indian tribal folks on horses, and you put this onto the prompt with teepees in the background, headdresses, 1890s, et cetera, and it'll regenerate a lot of that stuff. But it didn't come up with all those prompts. Didn't come up with all that. AI didn't come up with all that on its own. It's still going to take your creativity to create that. And then let's say we
yeah,
replace that with creative things like they're all on spaceships, they're all on rockets or something, and you totally, you
oh
know what I'm
yeah,
saying? You that's going to be the human art creativity part that will never, well, not never, but will likely be a long ways away before AI is going to be able to do that on its own. And so that's where artist demand will still be very huge. And like you said, that's where you can build up your followers on Instagram and build up your reputation and build up your portfolio and all that.
yeah. There is a guy who I follow on Instagram every now and
Mm-hmm.
then who he does big ass drawings by pencil. And you know what he does though? He just sells fucking prints.
Right.
And you need technology to sell prints. So
Either way.
anyone who also is bagging on advancements of technology, the mere fact that you're using technology to sell a print, a
Right.
copy of your original because it was so, took up all this time and that one's worth tens of
Mm.
thousands, but you want to sell these ones for $200, you're still using technology. So the guy who
Ultimately,
was, yeah, there was people bitching about the copy machine when it came out. Oh,
right.
why no one's
Exactly.
going to need us to write all these things down? What do you mean? We're going to be put out of business. There's a fucking copy machine. You're those same
Exactly.
people. You're those same people.
Exactly. And it's a little bit of a over thing to call them Luddites, but that's essentially at the core is the Luddites were people who destroyed the textile machines because the machines were for the first time able to weave clothes without them doing it by hand and having these communities that did it by hand. And they were pissed that a machine can now not only do it faster, but can work all the time. Pretty much it doesn't need to rest and can
Yeah.
output a lot more. And as time went on, it could even put out better quality in general. So that whole thing is a kind of a very old concept. And yeah, once you go down the road of what's pure art, it's a very subjective and is classic eccentric artist stuff. So I think you just embrace it. What is interesting is some artists are really embracing it. They're excited by the productivity that
Good.
AI that's gonna allow them to do, but they're being so shouted down by purists that are seriously fired up. They're emotionally charged, like few things I've seen with these kind of debates, and they're being silenced. Even though some are really high respected artists, there's one CGI studio that puts out videos on YouTube and they did a couple AI videos, and whew, man, their comments were so fiery that they've kind of rolled back, even though they were excited by the tools that this allows them to do. One of the examples of the video was exactly what I'm talking about. They took a picture of one of the guys at the studio and then recreated scenes of him as like a medieval knight and doing a whole bunch of stuff, and they used the AI art to recreate him doing actions, but it was his face and his body. That's exciting.
Dude,
And how long? How long would that take to draw that?
Yeah.
Each image. That would take huge productivity gains. So that's
Dude,
exciting, really.
I literally want to do that. I would love to make little skits of me and my family just using
Exactly.
that. I
And
would
that's what you
love
could
that.
do.
That is so cool.
Consider before, even 10 years ago, how much you would have to pay an artist to do that. Now you can do
Dude.
it yourself. Now you can do it yourself. And so it's freeing your creativity. You were always creatively able to do that. You wanted to create something for your family, but there was a barrier. And now we've lowered the barrier, and people are upset about that. And, it's going to work great for some and not for others. Always
So
has.
it might have been it might have been like 10 years ago. I told you that we should make history videos on YouTube, but
Right.
then animate it. So animate the video so that it was watchable, so it's
For sure.
entertaining.
Yeah.
You remember me saying that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Exactly.
So, but one of the things that, me and you ran into is one, I didn't know how to animate that stuff.
Me
You,
neither.
you know how to animate some of it, but how time consuming it would have been at that time as a one man
Dude.
show to animate our, we'll say, hour long or even 30-minute long history video. And if you don't have a bunch of resources and capital to invest into that and a team to animate it, but now me
Exactly.
and you can literally start a history YouTube channel tomorrow, get views, end up selling it to someone because they like the accuracy of the history. Because that's, me and you have talked about this before. It's one of the terrible things with our culture right now of wanting to make a TV show from 1492, but then they want to change so much of the historical accuracy. And it's like, but that's not history,
Right.
but they're trying to portray it as history, using real names of people. But I mean, but with the AI generated video, there's so much opportunity for people, man. There's
There's
so
so much
much.
opportunity. The bar has been greatly lowered. The hurdles that we were just talking about were significant. You need a studio to basically a team of people to do
Yeah.
what we were talking about. And now you can have a much smaller studio, much smaller team, and still pursue your dreams. And at the end of the day, that is what really is American capitalism is all about. That is exactly what this whole thing's all about. And that's what AI is allowing to be done in that case. And I'm excited about that. Is it going to affect the people who used to charge 5,000 per image or whatever, and have very comfortable livings from those barriers? For sure, for sure. That's definitely going to change their whole dynamic of how they do it. But the thing is, like you said, they already have a reputation and Instagram followers and stuff, and with some creative rethinking, they'll be just fine. They just will no
Yeah,
longer be able to make money from how they used to. Yeah.
we gotta take, everyone in America should take one step back, realize that this is the greatest country that's ever been on the face of this earth, that we know of. And we got to realize that it's also because of the technology advancements that we've done, the free market flow, that we've done. I feel like we have crony capitalism right now, but that's for another podcast. So it's like we shouldn't be bitching and complaining about these advancements. We should be embracing them, celebrating them instead of being so negative, because there's so many other advancements that people were bitching about that
Right.
we love because of how easy it makes our life.
You
So,
totally nailed what I often you absolutely nailed what I often really sets America apart, and in and wider aspect of the West in general is embracing change, and change is painful. Change is what
mhm.
they often don't tell you is it can be exciting, but it's often painful. One of the things when I study history, the things that hold back the Middle East and many other countries of the world is they want to stick to how they used to do things, and I get that. But you have to, if you want to be dynamic and really grow your future, you have to change. And and nobody ever said that was going to be easy, or it wasn't going to be painful, or you're giving up old traditions. And these countries are extremely static because they refuse to embrace change, and it's only to their own detriment ultimately. Um, I like I said, I wish you could have both at the same time, but you really, in many ways, culturally can't. So you have to embrace the change. And that would be the best thing Americans can do, is continue to embrace the change. That's why we've led the world in so many fields for so
Yeah.
many decades, is we're willing to embrace the change, work in a garage when formally you're supposed to go through the proper master apprentice programs, and you can't just skip ahead and start making your own thing in a garage. What are you doing? You have to do it exactly as we've been doing it for generations, and make a sword in Japan for thousands of years the same way. I get that. I appreciate that. Believe me, as a history person, I totally appreciate that. But the dynamicness of the modern world comes from embracing change, and as at the core of American success is we're
Yes.
gonna we're gonna we're gonna embrace change. We're gonna embrace new things, and we need to continue to do that. I do worry eventually that every country might feel fatigue of constant change, and America is not immune to that. You can kind of feel it sometimes with the discourse in America that there's a fatigue of constantly adapting to new changes and stuff. But I hope if any country can continue to do it, it's going to be us. I think.
It's gonna be us. I mean,